Hello everybody, welcome. I'm the Strategy Professor, and today we're going to be learning how to write a better cover letter. So this will help you get into the university where you want to attend. This will help you get the kind of job that you want, help you get scholarships. I'm just going to help you in a ton of different ways, anywhere that requires a cover letter, a statement of purpose, or whatever else they might call it, just the written portion of an application. So let's go ahead and get in there, and I have some pretty simple tricks that I think will help you guys out quite a lot. Okay, so when you're thinking about cover letters, you want to think about the bigger picture. So what is a cover letter actually looking for? What do people want to see in a cover letter, and what is the actual purpose of a cover letter? How does it work in conjunction with your other qualifications, such as your CV, your GPA, your past work experience? It's really arcane and difficult to figure out sometimes just how all of these elements work together to help the committee come to a decision on who they want to accept for a given position. So, first of all, let's think about some of the important considerations for writing a cover letter. Then I'm going to tell you how to actually write the cover letter. Then I have a couple of really good examples. So one, how I applied to grad school for my PhD program using the cover letter. I've got that example for you. I have a student example that she wrote in a class of mine. I have students write a cover letter for the final portion of the English 111 class, which is just your first year English class. So I've made that anonymous, and I have an example of that for you as well. Then I have just a couple of real world examples for how you might apply to an internship using some of these tips that I'm talking about. So let's start off by thinking about some of these important considerations. So first of all, you need to keep in mind what I just said a second ago, which is that the cover letter is part of a larger packet of information that a potential employer is going to be looking through. The cover letter doesn't have to accomplish everything, and it should complement the other parts of your application. So the most important aspect of this to keep in mind is that the organization knows that you want them. That's why you're applying. So a very common error that many people, I don't guess it's an error, but it's not optimizing the cover letter if you just focus on yourself. So if you just say, I want to go to this company, I want to attend this university because it's so awesome. I've always heard great things about this university, and my parents went there, and it's just down the road, and it's really cool. It has a great looking campus. It's ranked in the top 25 in the nation. These are all very common things that people will say in a cover letter, and you don't need to say that because they know that. They know they're awesome. They wouldn't be an organization if they didn't think they were already awesome. So you aren't really changing anything. You aren't really adding anything persuasive because they know you want to apply there. That's why you're applying there. So if you spend 75% of your letter talking about how awesome the organization is, you're really wasting your time. You're wasting a great opportunity to show them how you will contribute to that organization. That's really where you want to try to position yourself. So they know that you want to go there. That's why you're applying. What they don't know is why they want you. So that's the trick. You don't want to convince them that you want them. You want to convince them that they want you. So you don't want to sound arrogant about this. You don't want to sound dismissive of the organization. You don't want to sound like you're better than they are. But you want to show them as much as possible in your cover letter that you're going to contribute immediately to make that organization a better place. So you want to make it seem like you have lots of experience in the field, and not only you have experience, but that experience is going to translate into actual things that you're going to do to help the organization become better, to help it reach its goals better. So that's the first thing you need to keep in mind, is the mentality. They know you want them. What they don't know is that they want you. So that's what you need to address. You want to show them that they want you. Okay, so they're going to have your resume. You need to supplement that resume, not repeat it. So I just mentioned this a second ago, but that means you don't have to tell them everything that you've done in your entire life. You don't have to say, I have a 3.5 GPA from this high school or from this university, or I worked 6 years in advertising at this company, and just list off things that are in your resume. That's a waste of time. Like, you can mention those things if you want, but only if you're going to go into further depth talking about how that time actually contributed to your readiness for this new position. Because they have your resume. They're going to probably read your resume first and then read your cover letter. So they're already going to know everything that you've done. So you don't need to repeat things that they're going to see in your resume, unless, like I said, you intend on expanding on what the resume says to go in depth about why these things are actually important. Okay, and this brings us to our next point. They're going to know what you've done in the past for the most part, because they're going to have your resume. They're going to kind of read between the lines, say, okay, this person has some experience in accounting. They've worked with this kind of software, or, they have an undergraduate in biology and now they're applying to med school, so we can assume they've probably had some chemistry classes and things like that. They're going to know the basic gist of what you've done in the past based on your resume. But you want to show them what you're going to do in the future with your organization. So not only, okay, I worked at this accounting firm for 5 years, but they want to know, okay, I learned this software and I learned this specific style of accounting, or I have experience with this particular complex scenario that can happen with accounting. And I think that this is going to be a benefit to your corporation because I know that this situation can also arise in this branch where I want to work. So I hope to be able to address that issue. That's the kind of thing that you want to do, is show how what you've done in the past is directly going to connect with what you're going to do in the future with this organization, how it's going to benefit the organization. So you always want to focus, as I've been saying up here, on the organization. How do you benefit them, not how they benefit you? That's another rookie mistake that a lot of people will make when they apply to jobs, is they'll say, oh, well, this is going to help me, especially for internships, like summer internships. If you're an undergraduate and you're just kind of looking for summer internships, the very common mistake, and say, well, I want to go to the summer internship because it's going to give me experience with this, or it's really going to help me do this. It's going to do all. They know it's going to help you. That's why you're applying. You want to show them, look, I'm not just going to blow this off because it's a summer internship. I'm actually going to help your organization succeed and do better. So don't always talk about how this job is going to help you. Talk about how you're going to help the organization. And that's usually most relevant internships that are understood to be temporary, but you still want to focus on the organization. Even if you are just getting it, just to help your own sort of resume building for the future, don't say that. They understand that's part of the game. They know that's how that works, but you want to show them that you're also going to help them out, that it's not just a one-way street, that you're also going to benefit them, not just they're going to benefit you and you're not really going to do anything. Okay. And just also keep in mind there are tons of other applicants that are going to be applying for anything in this day and age. So when I applied to my PhD program, they accepted 4 literature students out of about 200 applicants. And when I applied to my master's program, they accepted, I think, 16 out of about 200. So it's extremely competitive. And when my wife moved to Ohio with me, she applied to 132 jobs and got called back from 3. And she had, I believe, 6 years of experience and a master's degree in the field that she works in. So it doesn't really matter what your field is, what you're applying to. It's really hard to get a good job or to get into a good university these days. So you have to take the cover letter seriously, because it is going to be probably the number one thing that's going to set you apart from other applicants, because most people don't do cover letters well. They just kind of blow it off and just kind of reiterate what they said on their resume, as I just talked about up here. And this is also a place where you can really spell out how you're going to connect with the specific organization, which I've said probably a dozen times, and I'll say a dozen more. That's really what this is all about. There's no other place in your application process where you can do that. Your resume doesn't really do that. Your past job experience doesn't do that. The recommendations from other employers might kind of do that, but they're probably going to focus on the past, not on the future. So the cover letter is really the only place where you can distinguish yourself from all of these other applicants, because they're all going to have similar stuff. They're all going to have, the 3.5 GPA or whatever the minimum is. They're all going to have recommenders that are going to say nice things about them. They're all going to have some kind of past work experience, most likely. So you really have to find a way to distinguish yourself, and the cover letter is probably the best way to do that. Okay, so that's why the cover letter is important. So these are just some important context you need to understand. Let's talk about how to actually write that cover letter now. So, number one, this is the most important thing, and this is the thing that probably very, very few people do. So this will give you a tremendous edge if you actually do this. research the organization. Now, I'm not talking about, just huge archival research, like hours and hours and hours of research. This is something you can probably do in less than an hour. And if it's a really big deal to you, if you really want this job, you really want to get into the university, which it probably is, an hour is a very, very small investment on your part. So just take about an hour and do these things. So research the organization. So what are you applying to? What is this position? What will they expect you to do in this position? What are your responsibilities? Who are you going to work with? This is a major thing that a lot of people overlook, especially in academia. If you're applying to a grad school or even undergraduate, think about which professors you specifically want to work with, and then figure out a way to connect your work, what you're interested in doing, with those professors. So I'm going to go ahead and go to an example here. So let's say that I wanted to apply to Miami University, which is where I currently teach. Okay, so I would just look up English department, Miami University faculty, and then you just go down and you just look through who are some people that I would like to work with. So I do 19th century British literature, and then my subtopic is cultural exchange between South Asia, primarily India and Sri Lanka, and Britain in the colonies. So I'm looking for 19th century. Okay, we have Mary Jean Corbett here. All right, so if we just click on her and see she does 19th century. All right, Victorian literature, women's writing, and then you can see some of her publications. Now, I didn't quite go this far when I applied, but I should have. Read some of these. Like, you don't have to read her entire body of work, but just skim an article. Just figure out what is she like? What is she interested in? She obviously does quite a lot with women, gender studies. Looks like marriage is pretty important to her. So just look it up and just see if that's something you're really interested in doing. Then mention that in your cover letter. Just say something like, I really want to work with Mary Jean Corbett. I like her ideas about this and that. And this tells you what she's working on currently down here. So let's go down. So she would be good if I were thinking about applying to this place. And then we come to, I saw this Nalan Jayasena, okay? Who is the man, by the way. I'm just going to, most of the faculty at Miami is just awesome, amazing people. But this guy in particular is what drew me to Miami, and he has not disappointed. He's an amazing professor. He's a lot of fun, very insightful. But I just look at this, okay, British Imperial Literature, Post-Colonial British Literature, and South Asia, Colonial, Post-Colonial Literature of South Asia. So he's everything that I was looking for in terms of British, South Asia. That's what I want, 19th century. You can kind of see what he has published and work from there. So just take note of this. Just research wherever you want to apply. If it's a company that you're applying to, you might even consider, let's say I wanted an internship with Kroger. All you do is just type in Kroger. Let's see here. All I did was I just typed in Kroger conference call. All publicly traded companies release a presentation and a webcast at the end of each quarter in which they disclose sort of what their current projects are. You can figure out who the major players are in terms of management, what direction the company's going in, and you have access to this. It's free. So you just go on here, you just click on a few different things, presentations, make a couple other clicks. You'll eventually arrive at a webcast. Now, I'm not going to click on it here. We're going to move on. But you can just click play, and it's about an hour long. And usually these work, there'll be 30 minutes where they tell you everything the company's doing. That's sort of exciting, new things, some of the competition they're facing. And then for 30 minutes after that, it's a Q&A with stock analysts. They'll ask them some tough questions about the competition, new products they have rolling out, different management decisions the company's making. So this is a real insider ticket, and you can do this for free. You don't have to own any stock. There's nothing special. I just typed in, you can even make up a fake name if you want, and a fake email address or whatever. If you don't want them to know anything about you, you can just access this. And that's a real good way just to figure out what are some exciting new products, what are, some management changes, what's the direction the company's trying to go in, and then you can tie that with what you're doing. So you could say something like, I see you're trying to work more on organic, sustainable food. You're trying to grow your organic section in Kroger. I have a background in organic marketing. I've learned a lot, from this class that I took at a university or this internship that I had in terms of new farming methods and ways that potential ways that companies can leverage that to bring better products to the shelves for consumers, that type of thing. So just a little bit of research, you can figure out exactly what a company's all about, what are some new exciting projects, and then figure out how you can tie in with that. So what's unique about them? Recent projects, like I just said, what's their philosophy? Are they kind of laid back? Are they very organized, very tight-laced? Do you like that organization? I had a friend that worked for a major corporation. He's an engineer, and he does just testing on thermo generators, and he worked for one big company that I will leave anonymous for now in South Carolina, and he just really didn't like the atmosphere. It was just very stifling. There wasn't a lot of creativity. There wasn't a lot of travel involved. It just felt very mundane, and he just felt like he really wasn't that important and really just wasn't connecting with their mission. So he transferred and got a new job in Tennessee, and he works for a much smaller company, and they let him travel a lot, and he gets to work on more innovative products, especially things that are green energy related and that help preserve the environment in various ways. And that's something that's very important to him, ethically and philosophically. And so that's why he took that company. Even though I think he took a small pay cut, it was really important for him to match with a company that has a very similar philosophy and approach to the field of engineering that suit his interests. So, and a lot of potential employees are like that. If you haven't figured that out yet, if you're working somewhere and you just really don't like it, there might be another place out there that fits your interests a lot better if you just look. So try to match up personality-wise with the company whenever possible. Like, don't be at a place that's really unorganized if you don't like that, and don't be at a place that's really too hyper-organized and stifling if you like to have more freedom, if you like to travel, if you like to do more sort of innovative things. So different people like different things, so just make sure that your personality matches the personality of the company. And you can do that with just a little bit of research. Just listen to their conference calls. I mean, does the CEO sound like someone who is someone that you would like? Now you're not going to be working with the CEO on an everyday basis, but if they sound like someone that you don't really like that much, that's probably going to trickle down because they're going to hire other leaders in the company that share a very similar philosophy with that person. And it just trickles all the way down to the bottom potentially. So that's something to keep in mind, that the personality of leadership can have an enormous impact on the overall satisfaction of various workers within a company. So just make sure that, as much as possible, that you enjoy the atmosphere of a company. Okay. And then, how will you contribute to the organization? So, find out information about current projects. Okay, we just talked about that. Information about bosses with whom you'll work. So sometimes you can listen on the conference calls. Sometimes you can just, if it's a smaller company, you can just look them up and just figure out who's running the show here, who's doing the hiring, and just send them a friendly email. Just say something like, hey, I'm really interested in this position. Could you tell me a little bit more about what my responsibilities might be? Or, hey, I really love this project that you're working on here. I noticed that your company is hiring for this position. Would I be able to work on this project with you? Type of thing. Most people are very happy to talk about their own work, their own organization, their own interests. So if you just email them, ask them questions, as long as you don't seem like you're trying to brown nose them too much, as long as it doesn't seem like you're trying to suck up too much and just gain too much favor in kind of a slimy way. If you're just actually interested in the company, that can give you a huge, huge edge over other applicants, because most people will just send in the application, they'll never ask questions, they'll never do their research, and they'll never try to connect themselves with the company. So try to do this. Reach out, ask questions if you're interested. All right, skim the publications. I said that before, especially if you're applying to a grad school or law school or med school or something like that. Just see what some of these leadership figures have published, how they position themselves in the field, and then talk about how you're going to fit with the organization. And mention other leaders in the field. It doesn't even necessarily have to be in that specific company, but just show them that you have done your research, that you're invested in the field. Like, who are some leaders? Who are the major innovators in this field? How do these innovators inspire you in various ways? Okay, and then I'm going to just mention this real quick, and then I'll show you some examples. All right, so each cover letter should have about 4 main components to it, and you might have to abridge some of this depending on your cover letter, and I've got some examples of all kinds of things here for you. So first off, this is one that most people do cover. So who are you? Why are you interested in the position? So that's number one that you want to mention in your first paragraph. Just tell them a little bit about your background, Why do you want to get into this position? What are you going to gain? How are you going to contribute to the organization? Okay? What are some examples that show that you have experience with the field and that show that you're ready for this position? So this will be your second paragraph. So go in depth. So don't list just sort of a litany of things that you accomplished that's going to be covered in your on your CV. Go in depth with one or two projects that really show them what you learned. So, okay, you took an accounting class. What did you do in there? What was a major project? How was that project going to prepare you for this new position? So this is your chance to go in depth about a single project, or maybe two, depending on how long the cover letter can be. But this is where you go in depth and just show them your experience in the past. Okay, this is the most important one. This is what most people skip. This will get you the job, the money, the entrance into the university. This is where the real gold is. So I highlighted it for you here. How will you contribute explicitly to the organization? Who are you going to work with? How are you going to make a difference? How are you going to make a splash? Like, what are you going to do for this organization? And then if you have room left, a well-rounded category. So this could be, I not only do accounting, but I also volunteer at this place, or I not only do whatever your thing is, but I also do this other thing. So this can vary a lot from place to place. And if you need to abridge your application, so let's say these first 3 steps take up a page and you're only allowed to send in this one single page, then you can go ahead and just skip the well-rounded category. But if you have a little bit of room, it's always good to show a little bit of well-rounded category so that they're just not hiring someone who is technically good at what they do, but someone who's also going to be a good person or an interesting person to work with. Okay. And finally, make sure that you change some details of your letter to appeal to different organizations. So don't just send a generic letter to every single person. So if you're applying to 10 different grad schools, do not send the same letter to every single grad school. I can't imagine there would be something more annoying if you're just put yourself in the position of someone who has to read these letters. You're on the admissions committee at a university and you get 400 applications. And this one just reads super generic. It basically just covers the CV. And it just says, I am really interested in your university. It's really cool. I like your university. It's great. You have a very strong university. And you can just tell that it's the kind of letter they're sending out to 10 other universities. You're just going to throw it in the trash immediately. Show them that you did the research. Name drop. Mention professors that you're going to work with. Mention bosses you're going to work with. Talk about initiatives that the organization is taking. Like, show them that you actually care and that you're committed to this organization. Even if you are applying to 10 others, show them that you're committed. Okay, so I've got some examples here. All right, so first off, I'm going to show you my statement of purpose here. All right, so I am Josh Moats. I go by the Strategy Professor on this channel. But this was my application that I sent in, and a student, I think, asked me for help in writing an application. So I went ahead and annotated it here so that you can kind of see how my application letter fits in with the philosophy that I just described. So I'm not going to read it all, but let's just go through some of the highlights. So, Dear Graduate Admissions Committee. All right. I'm currently a graduate student completing an MA in English at the University of Tennessee, Knoxville. As an undergraduate, I triple major in English philosophy and religious studies, and I developed an interest in the way authors incorporate religious ideas into their fiction. I have focused as a graduate student on the emergence of European conceptions of Buddhism in relation to the nascent Victorian field of comparative religion spearheaded by Max Mueller. I want to build on Jeffrey Franklin's scholarship in The Lotus and the Lion to better understand how the emergence of Buddhism in Victorian society influenced English novelists in the later 19th century. I'm also interested more broadly in how other peripheral religiosities such as occultism influenced English fiction and culture. Okay, so this is just telling them a little bit about myself. Here's my background. So yeah, I had a triple major. This is good. It shows that I'm well-rounded, but then I got very specific very quickly. I said, this is what I did, this is what I've done in the past, and this is what I want to do. This is the type of scholarship that I'm most interested in, so this is what I will do with your organization. All right, and then I just explained that here. Formal opening, preview yourself for the reader, so who are you, what are you doing, narrow your interest, mention a specific person. This is key, so I mentioned this before. If you know of someone who's a leader in the field, mention them. Say, I'm really inspired by this person's scholarship. You don't have to go into huge depth. You don't have to talk about Jeffrey Franklin here for 3 paragraphs. Just name drop. Just say, look, Jeffrey Franklin, Lois and the Lion, and then just talk a little bit about what he covers in that book, or she, depending on who you're referencing. And boom, there you go. That's going to show that you're dedicated to the field, that you at least have done a little bit of research and that you know what's going on. All right. And then I talk about my thesis. So this is a major project that I did at the end of my master's. And I renamed that something else. If you're interested, just let me know in the comments. I can tell you what the actual name of my thesis is. If you just look up Buddhism, George Eliot, I think I'm like in the top 5 things that show up on Google for my thesis. But anyways, okay, so I just talk about a major project that I've done. This could be if you did a past internship. It could be a major paper that you wrote in one of your classes. It could be a major project that you worked on at your past job. Just something that shows, your competency in the field, that shows that you know what you're doing, you have some interesting ideas to contribute. Okay, and then we have the most important part here. How are you specifically going to fit with the organization? So I just say, I want to join the academic community at Miami University to expand my knowledge of how Buddhism impacted Victorian culture and fiction. I would love to work with Dr. Jayasena, okay, so a very specific person that I've mentioned, to explore why Buddhism became popular with European travelers. Mention a couple of people that I learned about in the research. I want to learn how different regions, okay, a little bit more research that I've done. Also want to work with Dr. Wilson in the comparative religion department to learn how ideas about Buddhism differed from the actual practice of Asian Buddhists during the mid-19th century. Okay? And then I want to work with Dr. Cho to learn how 19th century Americans interacted with Asian immigrants and their religious beliefs in California. Okay. Then I just say, all right, so these are the people that I want to work with. Here's how I'm specifically going to work with these people. I want to work with these ideas. And each one of these people does something like this already. Like Dr. Jayasena, does something with 19th century South Asia. Dr. Wilson does something with comparative religion and specifically Buddhism. And Dr. Cho specifically does Asian American literature, especially in the 19th century. So I know that because I did research. And not a lot of research, just like an hour, and you can figure this stuff out. And so I'm specifically tied it with their research. And then I said, Miami University offers a unique opportunity for me to work with 3 strong scholars in South Asian culture. These strong faculty members, in tandem with Miami University's excellent reputation for global studies, combine to make Miami one of the best programs in the country for my interests. Okay, so this is sort of my Miami's awesome, but it's specific because I mentioned specifically South Asian culture and global studies, and that's something that they are very strong at, that they do very well. So they know I didn't just send this out to every university because I mentioned 3 specific people and the specific strengths of this program, that other universities don't have this kind of strength in this particular niche. Okay, and this is just my final, they said you could have up to a page and a half. And I did some research and I figured out they really like people that are very committed to teaching. Miami has a great reputation for undergraduate teaching. And so I just did a little bit of research, figured out Kevin Porter is a particular sort of philosopher of education that I'm interested in. And so I just mentioned some of his work very briefly and just how that fits into how I like to teach the classroom. Okay, so that's it. So it's not really that hard. It's just got those 4 steps, right? It's just who are you? What's a major project that you worked on? How are you going to fit in with this particular organization? And what's your well-rounded? And my well-rounded is teaching because they seem like they really like teaching a lot at Miami. All right. I'm just going to, and we'll wrap this up here in just a second. I just have a couple more examples for you. So this is how I applied to Kentucky, where I was also accepted. I was only accepted in 3 out of 10 of the graduate schools I applied to, and that's not very uncommon. We can talk about why that happens with graduate programs in another video, but most people are only accepted to about half of where they apply if you're applying correctly. In other words, if you're applying to tough schools and to sort of safety schools and things like that. Okay, so you'll notice this is very similar. So paragraph 1, very similar. Just talks about the exact same stuff. Paragraph 2, exactly the same thing. But paragraph 3 is different. So this is what I changed. I want to join the academic community at the University of Kentucky to research the emergence of Buddhism, blah, blah, blah. I would love to work with Dr. Rappaport to explore how Buddhism, okay, so very similar, but I just said I wanted to work with this particular professor. Interest in the conversation between Buddhism and Christian universalism and secular humanism with Spence Hardy. don't remember if that was in my other one or not, but I think I emphasized that a bit more here because I know that she, I believe, if I remember correctly, she has sort of an interest in Christianity in the 19th century. Also interested in this. The University of Kentucky has a strong background in cultural history and Victorian studies. So, see, I mentioned cultural history instead of global studies because that's what they focus on a lot more at Kentucky. And I look forward to grounding my interest in peripheral religions and cultural and political atmosphere of England. Okay, so with the help of Dr. Rappaport and Dr. Rosenman. So I didn't mention Dr. Rosenman that much in here. I probably could have mentioned her a bit more. But I just really didn't think I connected with her too much, honestly. So I didn't want to, I just wanted to mention her name just out of respect, but I just really couldn't find a way to connect with the kind of stuff that she does as easily. And then they also wanted it to only be 1 page long. So it could not be over a page, so I skipped the teaching aspect that I had in the Miami one, and that's also why I sort of abridged the Dr. Rosenman thing. I really only had time to talk about one person, and Dr. Rappaport had just a better connection with what I wanted to do. Okay, so there's that. Let me show you just real quickly a student example here. Okay, so I changed all the names around in this, but this is just something that a freshman in my class wrote, and I just want to preface this by saying this student was, she came into the class as just sort of your, I don't know, not average. I mean, she was, I'll just say she's not an English major. She's majoring in advertising. I think she's okay with English, but she's by no means like an AP English, like just an English superstar, like just loves it, is going to try to be a professor in English or anything like that. She's just kind of your, just a standard English 111 student, just comes in, has to take the class, kind of enjoys some things, other things maybe she doesn't enjoy, but in other words, this could be anybody in an English 111 class that actually just takes interest, listens, and learns things. Okay, so in this, for this particular assignment at the end, I had them pretend that they are either juniors or seniors and they're applying to something in the real world. So either an internship or a job or grad school or whatever. And they do all of these tips that I just talked about in the cover letter tutorial. Okay. So she's here, Farmer Business School, developed a fascination for merchandising and the role it plays. Okay, so if she were actually applying to an internship, this is the letter that she would submit. And keep in mind she's only a freshman, so she's looking ahead into the future, so what she might actually have done by the time she's a junior. So throughout my time thus far, developed a fascination with merchandising and the role it plays in marketing. One scholarly work I was particularly captivated by was Al Reese and Jack Trout's Positioning, the Battlefield Mind. It really culminated the purpose of marketing and how companies can benefit by building their strategies around their competitors' weaknesses. That just blew me out of the water. Like, if I was, hiring somebody for an internship, I don't even know if I would read any more applications. This is so impressive of a cover letter. And the reason is she mentions a very specific person, or people, I guess, and she talks about a specific philosophy that was in this book and how it connects with, what she could contribute to my company specifically. That is so much in one paragraph that is much, much more powerful than anything I'm going to read on a CV or any letter of recommendation that I'm going to get. This is just very good because it shows she's committed. She knows what's going on in the field. This is extremely strong. This will writing stuff like this will put you so far ahead of everyone else. And it's just, 3 sentences right there. And it's already shows me that she is phenomenal. And she didn't have to do that much. I mean, this isn't written like Shakespeare, it's good, she writes well, but at the same time, it's really just the details. She just has details, and she has a vision for how she can contribute. Okay, then she goes on, so that's kind of sort of the who are you type of section. How are you going to fit into the field? During the past 3 years, I've worked on numerous projects that help prepare me for real-world tasks. Okay, she talks about this a little bit, advertising, open my eyes. Now, keep in mind, she hasn't actually done this stuff yet, so she's just making this up. So it's going to be a little light on details. But the purpose of this assignment was just to get people to figure out how to write a cover letter so that when you actually fill up your CV and you're able to, apply to these strong jobs, then you're going to know how to do it. So it's a little light on some details here, but overall she has the right idea. It's very strong. This is something, what did you work on? How does this prepare you for the job? And then how can you fit in? What are you going to do? So increasing competitive global market. talking about branding, being immersed in a real life environment, what she's going to do. And then sort of her well-rounded, she has talked about a past job where she was a model at Hollister and, learned about branding and Abercrombie and Fitch and all these other things. So it's great. This is, and she, I think that some people might think, oh, well, of course I wrote a good cover letter because I'm applying to an English PhD program and, I've just committed my life to trying to learn how to think and write well. But this is, this young lady is just going into, advertising marketing, and she can still write a phenomenal business letter. You don't have to be Shakespeare to write a great cover letter and get an awesome job. Like I said, she's a solid writer, but it's not impossible is the message that I'm trying to say here. Even if you're not the most eloquent writer, you can still write a very strong cover letter and put yourself very far above other applicants. So let's just finish this up real quickly. I just wanted to look at another real-life situation, and I didn't do a ton of research, but I just wanted to show you guys just how this works. So I just typed in internship Cincinnati summer 2016. All right, and then 2016 paid internships. Business development. Okay, so let's just say ASAP looking for people. So let's just say I want to know a bit more about that. So we just go to view description. You can learn a little bit about it here. Other things, you learn a little bit more about it. So this is just a little bit of research, what's going on. You click on the company profile, tell you who they are, sort of what's going on here. A little bit about an incredible experience. Connect with us. You could tweet them, ask them things. Ideally, you could find some kind of email address or something somewhere where you could email one of these people about sort of the positions, what you would be doing. So it's not that hard to find internships, I don't think. And then also just do that research that I talked about before. All it takes is just a little bit of initiative. So I think that's all I wanted to cover here. Yeah, so hopefully you guys enjoyed this. Hopefully you learned a lot out of it. I don't exactly know how long this video took. It probably took a lot longer than usual, but you guys can skip around in it if you want to. I don't think it's a huge deal. But I just wanted to give you some of these real-life examples, both my own writing, just some anonymous, what a student in the past has written, and just show you how I gather some of this research and then how I implement some of these tips and ideas into my own writing, into my own cover letter. So you can use this for, like I said, for applying to universities. You can use it for applying to jobs. You can use it for applying to pretty much anything out there. Just the main thing is just go through, look at these tips, show them why they want you, do research to figure out how you can specifically connect with that company and articulate that in your cover letter. So don't just focus on yourself, don't just focus on how awesome the organization is, but talk about how you fit in. Because organizations want people who can come in and contribute immediately to have a large impact, to make it a better atmosphere, to increase profit margins, whatever their goal is. They want that impact immediately. They don't want to have to follow somebody around and just train them from the ground up. And, they don't want to hire people where they're not really sure whether the person's committed to the organization or whether they're just going to leave in a couple of months for a better job offer. You want to show them you're committed to the organization, you've done your research, you know what you're getting into, and you're just going to be awesome from day one as soon as you set foot in there. So do these tips that I talked about in this video, and you should be able to acquire whatever kind of position that you want, as long as you're kind of in the realm of respectability in terms of your CV. I personally, if I was hiring, I would hire somebody that wrote a very strong cover letter and maybe had a slightly lower GPA or maybe had a little bit less work experience, but had a much stronger cover letter, because the cover letter shows initiative. It shows that you are committed, that you're willing to do the research, you're willing to work hard. It's extremely important, not only for what you say, but what it says about you, that you're willing to demonstrate that kind of commitment to a company in a cover letter. I think many companies would just hire, and I think they do hire a lot more based on personality, initiative, and commitment, just as much as they do your raw stats, so your raw experience and your raw GPA. So hopefully you enjoyed this video. Thank you very much. I have another series going that's about how to write a better research paper if you're interested in that, and I'm going to write even more series based on whatever you guys really want. So just let me know in the comments. I can do series based on grammar. I can do more about cover letters if you want me to walk through some more examples. I'm really here for you to help you become better critical thinkers and better writers. So let me see, I'll switch back over to the webcam here. All right, so thank you very much. Hope you enjoyed it, and yeah, just let me know in the comments what you want to see next time. I have a bunch of new content coming out, so just stay tuned and learn how to be a better critical thinker and writer. And thank you very much. Have a wonderful evening.